Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Janice Lo. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. Door opens for imported workers in a bid to eat Hong Kong's manpower crunch. John Lee rejects claims that resuming a small part of the Fanling golf course will affect tournaments.
Potter won't go. Rebound called off Polk. They're not going to.
And the Denver Nuggets end the 47-year wait for an NBA title. Around 20,000 workers will be brought in as early as next month to fill vacancies in 3 sectors. The move angered local unions, but the government emphasized that the measure is temporary. Hong Kong had a working population of 3.68 million in 2018, but it fell by 22,000 to 3.46 million last year. Today, the government announced that it will invite foreign workers to make up for the shortfall. The construction sector will be allowed to import 12,000 staff, the airport 6,300, and up to 1,700 people will be brought in to drive minibuses and coaches. The government expects those filling the 20,000 spots will mostly be mainlanders because of the geographic proximity and convenience. The imported workers will not be paid less than the median salary of their Hong Kong counterparts.
We look forward to receiving applications in July, so in a few weeks' time. And we hope to be able to complete processing applications within about 2 months. So that's our pledge. We don't expect to fully utilize the quota in the first year. So it will be a progressive process. But we do believe that the quotas may be fully utilized sometime next year.
Most of imported workers in the construction industry can choose to live in quarters provided by their employers or in the Yuen Long Tam Mei Community Isolation Facility. The government has already earmarked the former COVID quarantine building as homes for around 8,000 people. Wong added that the hiring of foreign workers will be temporary. The Labour Advisory Board accused the government of not consulting it before rolling out the measures. But Labour Minister Chris Sun rejected the claim and said it would meet the Labour Advisory Board every 6 months to review the situation. The massive labour importation scheme has drawn mixed reactions. Trade unions fear local workers will be sidelined, but business groups argue that the manpower crunch is hurting the economy. Raymond Young reports.
The Federation of Trade Unions was up in arms about an unprecedented scheme to import labor across various sectors. Chairman and lawmaker Kingsley Wong said workers in many industries are still earning less than before COVID. He accused the government of sweeping things under the carpet instead of improving their wages and benefits. The city's largest union also felt the plan has effectively bypassed the Labour Advisory Board and diminished its role, and future policies may go unchecked. But commercial sector lawmaker Jeffrey Lam described the plan as music to his ears. He insisted there is no time to waste and urged everyone to put Hong Kong's interest ahead of personal gain. Business groups also applauded the initiative. The Hong Kong General Chamber of Commerce said bold measures are needed to tackle the manpower shortage. The Construction Association also said the scheme is absolutely necessary, even if the cost of hiring imported workers is higher, as employers have to arrange accommodation. Raymond Yang, HKIBC.
A scheme allowing private developers to build subsidized homes on government land has been relaunched. Most of the flats at 2 sites in Tung Chung and Chai Wan will be at least 375 square feet. Macy Mok reports.
2 plots of land will be put out to tender for developers to build subsidized flats that will be sold at 65% of market price. The sites can provide about 2,300 units in 2028 at the earliest. One site will be put to tender by the end of the year. It's a 1.4-hectare plot of reclaimed land that can provide 1,600 flats in Chongqing. A half-hectare site on Chengmen Road in Taiwan will be offered in the first quarter of next year. About 700 flats can be built on the land near a French international school campus.
實用面積唔好細過26平方米。
Secretary for Housing Winnie Ho said each flat will be no less than 280 square feet, and at least 70% of the homes on each site will have to be at least 375 square feet.
最終個決定權咧就喺局長嗰度嘅。
Permanent Housing Secretary Agnes Wong said Ho will have the final say on whether the selling price quoted by the developers is acceptable. The government will not purchase unsold flats, saying it's up to the builders to decide whether their targeted buyers can afford the homes. The Federation of Public Housing Estates welcomed the revival of the private sector participation scheme, which was axed 21 years ago. The Real Estate Developers Association chairman Stuart Leung said its members have expressed interest. Officials are still looking for a third site. Maisie Mock, HKIBC.
Chief Executive John Lee says Hong Kong will attend a regional economic gathering in San Francisco, but it's not known if he himself will be permitted to enter the United States. Lee said the U.S., as the host, is obliged to invite him to the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit in November. There have been questions whether he can join other leaders of the 21-member group for their annual meeting because he has been slapped with U.S. sanctions after the national security law was imposed in Hong Kong in 2020. The U.S. State Department plans to invite Lee, but four right-wing lawmakers say he should be barred. The chief executive says the Fanling golf course is still suitable for international tournaments, even after the government takes back a small part of the land. This follows a warning that Hong Kong might not be picked to host some international events.
It's extremely likely that we would have to look at moving to other locations.
The threat to drop Hong Kong from the Aramco Team Series in October came after the government said it will take back 32 hectares from the 172-hectare Fanling golf course. The original plan was to build about 12,000 public housing units on 9 hectares of the resumed land. Pending approval from the Town Planning Board, the chief executive insisted that the government will stick to its plan to recover part of the course. But John Lee assured that international golf tournaments would not be affected.
And if the 32 hectares of land is needed for the organization of international tournaments, of course, the government will make preparations and make available the 32 hectares of land for organizers of these tournaments. It can be used for parking spaces or reception facilities.
Lee pointed out that the more than a century-old venue has 2 world-class 18-hole courses and a 10-hole course, enough to host top-flight competitions. But it remains uncertain whether the government will still go ahead with its public housing plan after the area was rezoned from residential to undetermined last week. The Leisure and Cultural Services Department will launch a new system for booking recreational facilities to combat touting.
We realized that football pitches, in particular the grass turfs, is one of the most popular venues subject to touting activities.
Under the new Smart Place system, users must have their personal information verified through a self-service station or mobile app. This is to ensure that the booking will not be transferred to another person. The department plans to kick off the new system in October, starting with bookings for football pitches. Balloting will be introduced for popular facilities, such as football pitches, and unbooked sessions will be available on a first-come, first-served basis. Those making illegal transfers will be charged under the theft ordinance. Overseas, a man has been arrested in Nottingham after 3 people were found dead on the streets of the central English city. Large parts of the city centre were cordoned off, while tram services were suspended. Police were alerted just after 4 a.m. after 2 people were found dead on the street. It was followed by a report that a van driver had attempted to run over 3 people not far from the initial scene. A 3rd man was found dead nearby moments later. A 31-year-old man was arrested, with a witness saying officers dragged the suspect out of a van and pinned him to the ground. At least 6 people have been killed in a Russian missile strike on the hometown of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. A 5-story building in Kryvyi was engulfed in flames after being hit by rockets early this morning. The attack also injured 25 others, and officials fear some residents could be trapped under the rubble. Ukrainian soldiers, meanwhile, claimed to have captured 4 villages in the eastern Donetsk region. But Russia denied that the Ukrainian counteroffensive is making any headway. The Hong Kong stock market has risen to a 3-week high on interest rate moves in Beijing and Washington. The Hang Seng Index climbed 0.6% after the People's Bank of China cut a short-term lending rate for the first time in 10 months in a bid to boost market confidence. Growing expectations that the U.S. Federal Reserve will not raise rates this week also lifted the Hong Kong market. Investors made a beeline for tech giants. Alibaba was 2% higher, and Tencent was up 1.9%. Mainland developers also gained ground. Country Garden jumped 4.7%, and Longfor added 3.5%. Now let's take a look at the markets. The Hang Seng Index ended the day up 117 points. To the top 10 active stocks, Tracker Fund was up 13 cents, Tencent was up $6.40, while Alibaba was up $1.70. AIA was up $1.05, while Baidu was up $6.40. To the foreign exchange against the Hong Kong dollar, the euro is at 8.45, the pound sterling at 9.85, and the Australian dollar is at 5.31. Over in Europe, the London FTSE 100 is currently down by 1 point. On to the weather now. Be prepared for showers and thunderstorms tomorrow. Humid, with the mercury ranging from 27 to 30 degrees. It will be wet for the rest of the week. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for Tuesday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Janice Lo. Good night.